We're going to take a little trip back. In 1970, I was working as a bartender in a place called Nobody's in Greenwich Village, and a young Asian American guy came in and said, "Are there a lot of musicians who hang out here?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, there's going to be a conference at Pace College, just several blocks away. And if anybody's interested, they can bring their axe and play at Pace College." So the first thing I thought was, college? There must be women there. All right, so I brought my guitar, and I saw a lot of stuff I had never seen before. First of all, I found out I was no longer Oriental. I had been for years. Now I was Asian. Okay. And I saw a couple. I joined them on stage, actually, to play, called Chris and Joanne. They sang a song. The song sounded like this. "We are the children of the migrant world. We are the offspring of the concentration camp. Sons and daughters of the railroad builders who will leave their stamp on America." We are the children of the Chinese waiter, born and raised in a laundry room. We are the offspring of the Japanese gardener who will leave his stamp on America. Sing a song for ourselves. What have we got to lose? Sing a song for ourselves. Hey, we got the right to choose. You know we got the right to choose. Our foster children of the Pepsi generation. Cowboys and Indians ride, red man ride. Watching war movies with a next door neighbor and secretly rooting for the other side. Sing a song for ourselves. What have we got to lose? Hey, sing a song for ourselves. You know we got the right to choose. Oh, we got the right to choose. We are the cousins of the freedom fighters, brothers and sisters all around the world. We are a part of the third world people who will leave their stamp on America. Who will leave their stamp on America. Who will leave their stamp on America. So I entered another portion of my life. I said, "Hey, what is this going on here? What is this going on? It's talking to me." And I got involved with several different groups. I got involved with Chris and Joanne, who changed her name later to Nobuko. We went around talking about this new idea, Asian American consciousness. Many people forget back then there were only two types of Asians here, really. It was just Japanese and Chinese. And so this was a way to kind of bridge the gap that had existed since World War II. And young people who were born after World War II could talk to each other on the basis of a dialogue founded on Asian American consciousness. But it was heavily political too, which was a little strange for me because I was playing rock and roll, I was working in Greenwich Village, hanging out, having fun. But then I had to learn that there was other things in life. So I joined a commune. Actually, no, I joined a collective. A commune is when everybody does the same thing as an occupation. A collective is when people do different things, but they all live collectively. And I went through a process that taught me that everything that Uncle Chino had ever taught me was wrong, or at least socially unacceptable. I'd be at a meeting and I would say to somebody else, hey Jeff, wow, that Susan is really hot. Is she busy now? Is she seeing somebody? Oh no, comrade, you can't say that. Huh? What do you mean? No, that's incorrect, comrade. What am I supposed to say? You will say, Comrade Susan is physically fit, and I would like to do work study with her so we can resolve our contradictions. Oh, I got it. Okay. Yeah, things change. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot politically. I went through a lot of self-criticism, criticism. I mean, it would have me picking turnips in Sejong if they could. But I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about Asian American history. To my surprise, because of course they don't teach history in general in school, not really. And they certainly don't teach the history of minorities. So I began to learn more and more, and I began to think about, well, I'm a musician, what's my contribution going to be? It's going to be a musical contribution. So depending on where you are, there's an example of a Chinese American experience, practically in every state of the American experience. Here's one. Let's see if I can figure it out here. Mm-hmm. I was only a boy in old Canton town when I first heard the stories that were going around. Uncle made his fortune and he wore a gold ring. If you asked him about it, he gladly would sing. Dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Well, I boarded a ship, it was all made of wood. The bedding was lousy and the food was no good. 6 companies met us on Frisco's long pier. Of 300 started, only 200 here. Singing, dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. I walked to the hills my fortune to find. Of hardship and want, well, I paid it no mind. But the jumpers were waiting and they wished us all dead. They took all our claims and put lumps on our head. Singing, dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. I headed for Hangtown, the biggest of camps. There was gambling and murder by the light of their lamps. All the money I had, it was gone in a wink, for I spent it on women and foul whiskey drink. Singing, dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. I hunt up to Brandy Gulch was my next stop when who should I meet but a crazy old miner they called One-Eyed Pete. I picked up a 6-gun and put down the spade. By robbing and killing our fortune was made. Singing, dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Well, vigilantes, they caught us at a place called Pig Hill. Old Pete with a hang noose the miners did kill. They banged me and beat me till they thought I was dead. But I lived to the morning and I ran off instead. Singing, dig for the gold, dig for the gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. I ran to the place where we hid all our loot. I bought me some new clothes and a pair of new boots. Took a trip back to China on the next swelling tide. When they asked me about it, I turned and I lied. Said it was digging for gold, digging for gold. I'll be a rich man in China before I grow old. Sorry, I almost flubbed one of the lines because I was thinking about something, a martini. Oh, but never mind. Anyway, the Chinese-American experience. Of course, you've heard some people talk about the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. If you're not sure of the effect that it had, before the Transcontinental Railroad was built, if you left New York City and wanted to go to Sacramento, it would take 166 days overland. You could take a boat, but that was very expensive and very dangerous. When they completed the railroad, the trip took 11 days, and they shortened that down to 5.5 days a few years later. So it was really important for the building of this country. I've been working on a railroad all the livelong day. I've been working on a railroad, Lord, just to pass the time away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Hey, rise up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the captain calling? Hey, boy, blow your horn. My granddaddy worked on a railroad. He came to find a better way. He had to pound his heart out for pennies a day. So when I see an old freight train, hear one rolling along, I just remember my granddaddy, hey, and how he sang this song. I've been working on a railroad all the livelong day. I've been working on a railroad, Lord, just to pass the time away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Hey, rise up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the captain calling? Hey, boy, blow your horn. Hey, boy, blow your horn. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Lord, why don't they let that poor boy go? Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Hey, rise up so early in the morning. Can't you hear that captain calling? Hey, boy, blow your horn. Hey, boy, blow your horn. They started the railroad in 18. They started the railroad in 1862. But there was a problem because something had started and it caused everything to stop in the United States. Sometimes when I talk to high school students, they get very confused. I remember once I was talking to some high school students and I said, something started in 1861 that caused everything in this country to come to a halt. And they all looked at me blankly. So I said, I'll give you a clue. The Yankees is coming. The Yankees is coming. One kid raised his hand and said, they invented baseball? So then I realized, I tremble when I think about the future. There are a lot of guys get really, really involved in the Civil War. And I discovered at one point that there were a number of Chinese men involved in the American Civil War. Not many, of course. There weren't many Chinese people here. But there were several. There were two at the Battle of Gettysburg. One was a man who they called Joseph Pierce. He lived to be quite elderly. Another was killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. He was listed as John Tommy. He was with the 70th Regiment, New York City, under Captain Sickles. He was killed in the Peach Orchard section. He was severely wounded and died a couple of days later. He had reached the rank of corporal. And I used to wonder, why in the world was this man there? What was he doing there? Very strange. So that question comes up. The battle is now past. The field is quiet at last. The mortar and cannon no longer do roam. Stones stand in memory of the price of liberty paid in that most terrible war. Oh, John Tommy, why did you roam so far from your family and your home to adopt another land? Take a rifle in your hand and give your life so others might be free. A young and promising life was ended in that strife, amongst the many others of blue and gray. But heroes do not pause in the face of a righteous cause. How many fell that fateful day? Oh, John Tommy, why did you roam so far from your family and your home? To adopt another land, take a rifle in your hand, and give your life so others might be free. Immortality, if you live in memory, this mortal coil soon passes away. A certain kind of fame if we remember your name and pass it on another day. Oh, John Tommy, why did you roam so far from your family and your home? To adopt another land, take a rifle in your hand, and give your life that others might be free. In the 60s, into the 70s, there was a place up in upstate New York, which was a very notorious hangout, Saratoga Springs, which had several things going for it. Number one, it's a big hangout for any musician within 100 miles, several hundred miles, because it was the home of Skidmore College, which at that time was an all-women's college. And also, it was the home of a racetrack, so there was a lot of gamblers there. And it was also the summer home of the New York City Ballet. And there was a famous spa with medicinal waters, the Saratoga Springs. And it had 9 bars that stayed open till 4 in the morning. So, when you weren't doing anything, if you had a few dollars in your pocket, or even if you didn't have a few dollars in your pocket, you headed for Saratoga Springs. Woke up this morning with a strange taste in my mouth. Felt like a wild goose heading way down south. She wore a white dress and I wore a silly grin. But I'll be back for the water, Saratoga, Saratoga, won't you let me in? Traveling is a hard life, I guess you sort of know. Just when you're settled in, it's time again to go. Don't know where I'm going, only know where I have been. But I'll be back for the water, Saratoga. Won't you let me in? Summertime, see the ponies run. Rich folk come, that's how they have their fun. Folks like us, we ain't got the dough, so we hang around till the rich folk go. Whiskey on ice and the sweet guitar sounds. Boys, you know those Skidmore girls can turn your head around. When they ask you upstairs, you know it is no sin. You'll be back for the water, Saratoga, Saratoga, we'll let you in. But enough about my love life. Here's a great song written by Chrissy Jima. He wrote it about 49 years ago, if I remember correctly. Well, Mr. Wu works in the laundry, and his wife sews in his shop, and each and every wrinkle tells a tale. A survivor of the hard times and a fighter all his life, but the twinkle in his eye has never failed. He puts a kettle on the table and he leans against the wall. He says, "Excuse my English, but his words speak for us all." He says, "These hands have washed the clothes. These hands have served the food, heaven knows. This neck has felt the mob's rope, and it's been behind barbed wire. This back has laid railroad track. These arms have been for hire. These hands have fought injustice, and his soul has been on fire. But I'm still here, going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong. I am still here and going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong." Mrs. Gomez works the night shift at the pediatric ward. By day she cooks the meals for her own. New in the big city, she has never given up and fights to give her kids a decent home. There's Mrs. Kim who sells the produce on the corner of the square. People hurry by, but we all know she's there. And so the story goes for another generation, another page, a chapter being turned. Tomorrow is the struggle we face with determination. For yesterday our lessons we have learned. Oh, Johnny is a young boy who pumps gas for plates for school. His class is getting cut back one by one. John's father marched in Europe and his mother was in camp. Each shows off the battle scars they've won. Sometimes you hear raised voices that come drifting down the hall, but deep inside them both they know what binds them, binds us all. Because these hands have washed the clothes, these hands have served the food, heaven knows. This neck has felt the miles rope, and it's been behind barbed wire. This back has laid railroad track. These arms have been for hire. These hands have fought injustice, and this soul has been on fire. But I'm still here, going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong. I am still here and going strong, and getting tired of proving I belong. I'm going to finish up with one more song. It's a tune that was written because we began to be the recipient up in New York of a whole bunch of Cuban Chinese that began to arrive in the late 70s and early 80s. Of course, there were a lot of Cuban Chinese. They used to have restaurants and stores in Cuba, but you know what happened. So, at that time, I was living up on 85th Street on the Upper West Side, and there were a lot of Cuban Chinese showing up, and it was a very heavily Latin neighborhood, so that influenced this song a lot. My name is, of course, as was mentioned earlier, Charlie Chin, if you like me. If you don't like me, write your complaint on the back of a $20 bill and mail it to Linda Taoka in San Mateo. She'll take care of that for you there. So thanks a lot. Thanks to Eddie and to Peter and everybody else involved. Ay, camina hasta China, bueno, una sola vez, ¿por qué no? You know I could not get any higher. I was dancing to this salsa vaya. I down on the street, yes, and all that. Oh yeah. Conga Drum Central Park. We were playing way after dark. Getting home on a subway slug. Got a Hope I don't get mugged when I'm down on the street and all that heat. Down on my street and Pell, where I'm known quite well, shooting hoops with little wing, stealing kisses from milling, yes, down on the street and all that heat. There's a broken heart for every light on Broadway. There's a broken dream for every man on the Bowery. Oh, Carmen and Raphael, they can cook the frito so well, but I have to tip my hat and go back down to the street and listen to the radio. Oh, yes, down on the street and all that heat. ¿Qué pasa, Rico? Uno. Ah. Yes. Ay, mami. If you can cook like you walk, I'll even eat the burnt rice. I was down on the street, yes, and all that heat. Thank you very much. I've been working on a railroad all the livelong day. I've been working on a railroad, Lord, just to pass the time away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Hey, rise up so